I was standing in a very tall, dark barn in the middle of nowhere, freezing it was, and I was just, I had a mask on and a kind of a grainy taste in my mouth, and I looked down and I had a shovel in my hand, and I was covered in plant bits and crop dust, and I looked over in the shadows and I could see Joe, and he was covered in it, and he was shoveling away, and he was all in his beard, and I looked at him, the dust was rising off him, it was like I was in one of my early MTV videos, but a bad one, actually. And a Talking Heads lyric popped into my head. How did I get here? Then I remembered, I've got a farm. That's why I'm standing here in my willies, covered in yuck, in the middle of the night, in the middle of freezing winter, in the middle of nowhere. But in a farm, I'm not a farmer. I live in a city. What is this stuff we're shoveling? And you know, how did I get here? So I think it might have been all part of my late life crisis, because I turned 60, and at the same time my daughter had a daughter. And that really just stopped me in my tracks, obviously, and made me think about where I am now and what I'm going to eventually leave behind, and what a mess we're living in, and how pretty soon she'd find out that we've actually been pretty bad with looking after our planet and ourselves lately. And you know, she'll see that we're polluting the atmosphere with carbon, infecting our seas with millions of tons of plastic. We're damaging our agriculture with chemicals. We're putting processed and toxic food into our bodies, and she'd love those chips, actually, but you know, she shouldn't. And I think you've all in here have probably heard it all before. I hope you've heard it all before. But I felt, right, it was time for me to act now, and I knew I could be a better citizen and less plastic, no plastic, shop around responsibly and find some planet-friendly nappies for the little one or whatever. But though I realize I'm in a privileged position that I can be more proactive, and I just wanted to find out how, and I looked around for that. And then a Canadian friend of mine, Fonda, said I should check out a plant. And no, it's not the sort of plant that gets you high, but you're warm with that, because it is a cousin. But it's a cousin that I feel has got a big step towards some answers for those questions. And guess what? Until the 1930s, it was used countless ways for thousands of years. We built with it. We used it for medicine. We were clothed in it. William Shakespeare wrote on it and about it. George Washington grew it. Henry Ford built and ran a car on it. The $10 bill from 1914 actually depicted farmers harvesting it. So, you know, we were completely and utterly connected to it. And in fact, we used it until we banned it. And it's called hemp. And what can hemp do? Well, what can it fix? Well, carbon. 1 hectare of industrial hemp can absorb 15 tons of carbon in 100 days of growing. With plastic, the stem is really super strong. It's got fiber and cellulose that will be an alternative as a biodegradable oil-based plastic. For the soil, the hemp doesn't need pesticides or chemicals when it grows, and its long tap roots actually repair parts of the soil. And food, hemp seeds are really rich with protein. I'm sure you've seen them in health stores and things. And the flowers and leaves have a growing list of healthy benefits, including CBD. So one plant can do all this, you're probably thinking, suspiciously maybe, but you know, that's what I thought a year and a half ago. I found out that Popular Mechanics magazine said that it would become the billion-dollar crop, but that was back in 1938 when the governments were planning to banish it because of its cannabis cousin, marijuana. Reefer madness, they called it.
A new and deadly menace lurking behind closed doors. Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell. through the soul-destroying reefer, they find a moment's pleasure, but at a terrible price. Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide. See this important film now, before it is too late.
I mean, it's hysterical now, but ironically, paranoia swept across the US, and it was banned, really, including its innocent kind of billion-dollar lookalike cousin. It was just all banned. Well, today, things are thankfully changing, and it's legal now to grow in a number of countries around, including right here. So I looked around, searched around, and found 2,000 acres, roughly, in the UK, which is really tiny in agriculture terms. There's little pockets of it. There's 500 acres up in East Yorkshire, which are being used for horse bedding, and then there's another 50 acres these Hempen warriors are doing for sort of farmers market products. 40 acres up in near Leeds, which is a bed company, which are manufacturing these healthy, natural mattresses, but hardly anything. It's really not even enough to give the hemp a price for the farmers. It doesn't even exist really in the UK. So I looked in mainland Europe, and there's a bit more. There's 18,000 acres, and it's grown mainly for the car industry, strangely enough. And it turns out in that industry, they've been using hemp and flax for nearly 15 years for car door panels. And so BMW and Mercedes have hemp inside. I mean, who knew that? It's definitely stronger and lighter than their synthetic materials. It's probably cheaper as well, otherwise they wouldn't use it. But, you know, they haven't shouted about it, I think, because they feel their customers would be freaked out by it. You know, freaked out that their car is made of straw and its cousin's going to get you high. So, and unfortunately, that stigma, it still completely surrounds hemp. It's choking it, it's slowing its progress out of its dark age. And, you know, whenever I'd mention it, eyebrows would be raised and, you know, be a wink and things. And I even had a few friends who thought I was turning into a drug lord. So we've got to change that stigma for all those reasons. So, and I think maybe the clue might be to bring some of those hidden fibers from the cars out into the open and in some way. So I met with Tim, who's actually a really rare natural fibers expert in the UK, and he showed me some BioComposites and how they work. And you take the hemp fiber from outside the plant and you turn it into a non-woven material, and then you heat compress, and you end up with a material that's as strong as fiberglass from a plant. It's really super strong. So it really dawned on me then, why can't we apply that tech to more visibly cool products, you know, and then we can yell about the virtues of it for replacing unsustainable materials in a real cycle of positive growing, of cleaner production, and a natural end of life. And then, you know, adding to expanding health and therapeutic credentials of the plant, it could all help reboot it. And right there, I thought, that's what I should do. I'm going to grow it. I'm going to grow it. I'm going to research and develop it and work on it that way, the way I would research and develop a film. And I'll grow it because even just the very act of growing those acres will pull carbon out of the atmosphere, will do good for the soil. So just go on that try. And then I don't farm. I don't know anything about farming. I'd never done it in my life. But I kind of spur myself on by thinking that I've grown up in the film business where, you know, it really is a part of your life to learn something new. Entering the unknown is all part of it, you know, whether it's Chinese culture or learning about King Arthur or, you know, when you're making movies, it really is a part of entering that space. So I really went on to thinking about where else we can apply it, and movies, cameras. So why are these cameras, why are they cased in plastic or aluminium or carbon fiber? They should be cased in hemp. And why, with our storage facilities for our sets, why are they made of concrete when there is a thing called Hempcrete? The French have invented this Hempcrete, which is wonderful, the clever French, and I'm going to grow it anyway, I decided. So I found a derelict farm in Cambridgeshire, and I got a license to grow from the government after I'd been checked out by the police, which I think Hemp Barron was too obvious to be suspicious or something, so I got away with it. But a few local farmers, they popped their heads over the fence, and they thought I was naive and clueless and potty, and they didn't actually say that out loud, but I could tell that's what they were thinking. And then they said, how's he going to make a living, and it's going to be sustainable, which they did actually say out loud, and I took note, but they were probably being kind by saying I was naive, actually. But I wanted to go forward blindly. I've done that before. I entered the unknown in my other life of films, and I've had some success with that, where I've just gone for it. And so I'm going on a hunch, and a sprinkle of little naivety was I found good in the past. But anyway, stubborn me, I picked up the phone and I ordered 350 kilos of hemp seed, which was accidentally delivered to my flat in Barbican. But and it was kind of, I was actually really awkward with the neighbours, but I got through that, got past all that. And then just before the spring planting, at the farm, I just found a bunch of Cambridgeshire locals who really got it, and they joined in to help. And thank goodness for Mike and Catherine and their organic farming experience. They were amazing. And then about 20 miles up the road is Cambridge University, and I met with the head of sustainability leadership there, Dr. Cranston, and she invited me into a scary room full of professors and to tell what I was doing. And Dr. Ramage and Dr. Shah, actually, they just all got it, and they asked to partner with their Centre for Natural Material Innovation with the new farm. And then Dr. Ramage, when we were planting the seeds, he even came with a drone and helped us film it, and teachers have drones now too. Who knew that? and together we approached the brilliant professional camera manufacturers, Red Digital, and they said we could use their technical engineers to work with Dr. Shah at Cambridge and develop this hemp-encased camera, which is fantastic. So it really feels like it was meant to be, because now we're making and researching and developing, and we're growing. The crop grew. Despite the weeds and everything, it just grew and grew through last summer. And then it came to September, and it was time to harvest it. We didn't do it like that, but we did harvest it. And we had this processing facility, Farmer Rogers processing facility, brilliant machines and things, and he separated the fiber from the shive. And actually, that was the night when I got kind of completely covered in it, and I had that whole kind of talking heads moment. But that was, again, got past that, and needed now to put the processed plants to use. And the first thing we did was we took some of the stems and we crushed them into tiny little particles for Tom's innovative, non-carcinogenic, breathable, new brilliant plaster, which is to use in the walls of a new progressive Centre for Sustainability, the Conduit. And then we took the woody shives from the centre of the plant and we mixed those together with a little bit of lime in a kind of Hempcrete way. We built these sustainable wood cassettes, so to use it as a prefab. Paloma is our architect, that's Paloma. And then to build a prefab farmhouse on our farm out of our hemp crop. And according to the Financial Times, those Hempcrete walls are highly insulating, they're resistant to pests and mold, they have good acoustics, and they moderate humidity. And there's some really clever folk even now that are just wandering around the Black Sea. They're building hemp homes all around the Black Sea as we speak. So at the farm, though, I really wanted to next apply that sort of auto industry technology. So we used thermal compression technology to make these strong corrugated panels. And so the idea was you have aluminium and you have bitumen plastic and you've got corrugated panels that you use all over the place in sheds and barns and all kinds of construction. But we could use them here. And look, showing off now, but while we were at it, Tillot's made us a go-kart seat from our fibers. Why not use that in stadiums around the world? Why are we sitting in oil-based plastics? That's going to end up in the sea. So it seems to me, anyway, that the time is right for hemp, because recently the media have really got a buzz about it. The New York Times this year, they highlighted its potential construction future. Then their style section a few days later told how hemp and CBD is gaining momentum in the beauty market. And then Bloomberg even suggested that hemp may have a $1 billion future. So maybe Popular Mechanics magazine were right 80 years earlier with their $1 billion crop prediction. And since that era, it's really remained in the dark, and it's not been researched or grown or studied. And, we humans really disconnected from it. And I think that stay disconnected is a serious, big waste. You know, our future needs all the help it can find. And I think surely that includes learning from our past. And, you know, my farm adventures, I've really learned that there's so much that can be done with this plant because there's so many possibilities. There's still so much to learn. You know, how did I get here? Well, I still don't quite know, but I do know that this is now all in our hands. It's in your hands. So business grads, entrepreneurs, open-minded folks, you know, I think hemp needs your ideas and it needs your success for it to earn its place back on our farmlands. And then it could become that cash crop that the farmers so badly need in this country. And it's certainly a big step toward a cleaner, healthier earth for us all to live. Thank you.